Today in WWE 2K23, I am stepping into MyGM for the first time and I'm going to attempt one of the hardest challenges. We are going to be drafting the worst and jobbers from the draft pool and we must be number 1 by week 10 or we fail this whole challenge and the save must be deleted. So these are the full rules and limitations that make all of this even harder. Of course, as we said, we are in the hardest difficulty, but there's no trades, there's no new signings, no legends. We're starting on the lowest budget and we can only draft wrestlers that cost less than 155k. And if by the end of SummerSlam we are not number 1, we fail. I only played about 2 hours of MyGM in 2K22, but at least I knew stamina was gonna be important, so I went with Tyler Breeze as my manager to get that quick recovery. For the brand, I chose NXT so I could get a rating boost when I book a title match. As for my rival, I really wanted to beat WCW Eric Bischoff, so that was our pick, and then we were ready for the draft. Because of the budget limit rule, it means that we can only draft from the bottom and where's 30 superstars, so basically only 1/3 of all these superstars was available for me to get. I started thinking who could be my first champions and who I will have in a rivalry, so I went for one of my top heel choices from the lowest 30 that I could. So I went with Xavier. Since he is a giant, I went for a cruiserweight next to of course have a feud to kick things off that is compatible. Giants with the cruiser, bruiser with the fighters, and the specialist with anybody. I went with another giant on Shanky and another cruiserweight. At this point, I was sort of paying attention to the stamina of these picks because as I said before, I'm gonna be overworking them if I really want to have a chance. So while they're getting Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, Becky Lynch, Roman Reigns, I'm out here struggling, trying to build out certain divisions and certain rivalries that will be compatible right away. I did the same strategy for the women's. I had Tamina as a giant heel, so I went with Shotzi as a cruiser. In the end, this was the roster that I came up with, and it wasn't really by choice. As I mentioned to you guys, I was only able to draft from 30 superstars in the bottom. Some of those were even stolen by Eric Bischoff, so halfway through it didn't really matter who I was drafting. I was probably gonna end up with them anyways, so I ended up drafting a total of 17 superstars, 10 males and 7 females, which I don't think is that bad, but because this was my first season and I'm doing it the most difficult way possible, I was walking into a pit of danger like Batista. I think I was already in it. It was then time to pick my champions. I went with Xavier as the world champion and I went with Shotzi as the NXT Women's Champion. It was then time to start off some rivalries. Just like I told you guys, I was planning this on the draft, but as you can see, I ain't even booking any title matches on the first show because I forgot about the mid-card title and the women's tag team titles. That just hasn't crossed my mind yet. You can thank 22 for that. So this is my week 1. I know that Triple H wanted me to do a commissioner's goal of doing a Falls Count Anywhere match, and good thing for me that I definitely had enough money after the draft. So to begin a new rivalry, I had Shotzi taking on Tamina in the opening matchup. Tamina walked out with the victory in an okay matchup. I had Raquel switching role because I felt like Raquel could be a great contender for Shotzi later on. At least that's what I had in my head for the time being. I then booked a disappointing tag team matchup. I didn't really have a plan here. I just didn't want the mid-card match to be better than the opener, and I sort of needed to create new tag teams. So I had to take the hit nonetheless. So we had Chad Gable and Jinder Mahal taking the win. Pete Dunne advertising himself. Yes, I will be calling him Pete Dunne. He was my most expensive superstar, but as of right now, I didn't know what to do with him. I had another giant taking on another cruiser. That was of course the only thing that I knew about MyGM, but trust me, we're gonna keep learning. Here Shanky picked up the win. I had Chance doing some charity. That actually worked out, giving us a 5k extra fans. And then for the main event, it is when I win a big Extreme Rules matchup. Veer Mahan taking on Carmelo Hayes. Kicking off another rivalry, Veer Mahan retains his title. Then looking at Eric Bischoff's first WCW show is when I realized that, oh, I have a mid-card title. I also have the tag team titles that I need to set up. This was something I knew, but my brain was was just not processing it, as I was so concerned I was about to get my ass kicked. Of course, WCW got guys like Roman Reigns, Becky Lynch, Drew McIntyre, and Logan Paul in the main event. I was scared, but I wasn't ready to quit. Only in the main event did we beat WCW, and that's because we paid for an Extreme Rules matchup. But we take that second place and we move on to the second week, in which we are 3 weeks away from the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. I needed to continue building up my rivalries here, also starting new ones with the new champions that I need to set up. Triple H wanted me to book a table matchup, and it was also noted on the journal that Jinder Mahal and Chad Gable work well together as a tag team. So I decided to remember that, but for some reason I didn't book them together this week. I did need it to determine some of my other champions. I booked that table matchup that Triple H wanted, as I got Joaquin taking on Shanky for the North American Championship, and Joaquin walked out with that title in a good matchup, and now they were in a rivalry. I then had to turn Shotzi babyface, since I just started a rivalry with her and Tamina is the heel. Tamina was in action, taking a loss to Nikita Lyons, who, much like Pete Dunne, I just didn't know what to do with her just yet. Unfortunately, it was a horrible matchup. Solo Sikoa ended up calling out Jinder Mahal, kicking off a rivalry, and Veer Mahan, the champion, picked up a win against Pete Dunne, even though Carmelo Hayes ended up interfering in this matchup. And I just wanted to keep that rivalry going a different way, so I set up an interference. I had Akira Tozawa do a self-promo, and then it was time to determine my first women tag team champions, which ended up being Raquel Rodriguez and Jessie Jane. Good thing that I made Raquel heel the week prior. I think I got lucky in this decision. This was an okay matchup, but it did kick off a rivalry, which I'm hoping that it will eventually pay off. WCW ended up having another crazy show with some amazing matches, and I did feel like I was saving too much money, but my strategy here was that I was gonna go big on the premium live event. I took another major loss this week, but it's okay. It's a marathon. I'm gonna get there eventually. Or maybe not, I won't lie, I was losing hope. The following week, I continue many of the rivalries. Tamina defeating Shotzi in a tables matchup, getting that to a level 2. I had Chad Gable calling out Solo Sikoa. I also had Jinder Mahal calling out Apollo Crews, which was all leading to a tag team matchup. So I did sort of have a plan here, but what I didn't realize is that calling somebody out only builds up a rivalry that is a one-on-one rivalry, not for a tag team. So please don't laugh at me. This is only week 3. I am trying to figure it out. Anyways, mid-card matchup was horrible. The Women's Tag Team Championship rivalry went up, and also the World Title rivalry. So I was building up for a really good Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. I was just taking a lot of losses during the week. I mean, hopefully this pays off, right? My booking looks like it just continued to get worse. We're getting very close to the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Veer Mahan is happy because I gave him a rematch that he wanted, and for some reason Joaquin Wilde wants to be in a tag team matchup, and he wants to team with Akira Tozawa. But I'm like, this is not gonna work for me, brother. So I lied to him.
I forgot to tell you.
Yeah, I lied!
I don't know what effect that's gonna have, but you are the North American champion, bro. I can't be having you doing tag team matches out here. So instead, this is what we did. I actually booked a bigger venue this time around. Gotta spend some extra money because my budget is kind of crazy right now. I don't even know what to do with it because my GM experience is trash by this point. Not that it gets much better, but it gets a little bit better. In the opening matchup, I continued the world title rivalry with Carmelo Hayes doing an interference. This time around, Pete Dunne picks up a win, even though it was a trash match. Got some advertising getting done, and then our first World Tag Team Champions are here, and they are Solo Sikoa and Apollo Crews. A heel and a babyface. Don't judge me, I wanted Jinder Mahal and Chad Gable to win. I had Tamina calling out Shotzi, advancing the rivalry to a level 3, which was great right before the pay-per-view. For the mid-card title, I did did have Joaquin helping out Akira Tozawa as he interfered to, of course, cause some problems to Shanky. So Akira Tozawa picked up the win. Hopefully that makes Joaquin Wild a little bit happy. Had a successful self-promo, and then for the main event, I had a tables matchup with one half of the women's tag team champions Raquel Gonzalez taking on Chance, which only advanced a singles rivalry between them. That was not what I was looking for. Again, I booked this with the intention that the tag team rivalry was going to be advancing. I'm learning as we go here, and trust me, I'm still learning. I got absolutely destroyed in the ratings. I don't even want to talk about it. But now this is what we've been building towards. It is time for the first major event, the Hell in a Cell. And this trash Eric Bischoff ended up doing a double cost power card. But little does he know, I barely been spending, so I had a lot of money. Bischoff was talking trash, and Shanky wanted a matchup with the North American champion, which was perfect because that's what we've been booking for. I said I'll grant him that matchup, and he said, good, you mess with Shanky, you pay the price. At the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, of course, I paid for the arena. We also got the backstage crew. The show ended up costing almost $500,000. Almost my whole budget was going into the show. This was what I was saving for, so I was gonna go all out. In the opening matchup, we had a steel cage match, which ended up being a legendary matchup, and the rivalry was completed. Shotzi retaining her title. I was feeling good, so I wanted to continue building rivalry towards the next event, so I had Pete Dunne call out Akira Tozawa, had a tables matchup which led to brand new tag team champions, Chad Gable and Jinder Mahal. Nikita Lyon was advertising herself. At this point, her stamina was crazy. She was ready to fight. I didn't know what to do with her. The women's tag team title was another classic. The champions retaining, and it was a Hell in a Cell. Even though it was double cuss, I had a lot of money, so I was booking. The rivalry of Akira Tozawa and Pete Dunne continued to build up, so I put them in another call out. We had an Extreme Rules matchup, the North American Championship being defended, and we had a brand new champion, Shanky, taking the title. And for the main event, it was a backstage brawl. A lot of money. I'm crazy like that. And we determined a brand new champion as Carmelo Hayes takes the title from Beer Mahan, also advancing the rivalry. And guess what? WCW did put out some good matches, but we ended up beating them, at least on this show, having a better opener, better mid-card matches, and main event. So that was a victory for that show. Unfortunately though, we were still not number one. Eric Bischoff just had about 9K more fans than us. Nonetheless, I was confident of my booking because we had about 3 rivalries on level 3. I just needed to heavily focus into the next event, getting all that to level 4 so that the payout could be way better than anything WCW was gonna put up. And even though Eric was number 1, he was still impressed after that Hell in a Cell event. Chad Gable wanted to be in the main event, so I said sure thing, and Chance wanted to prove herself in singles competition, which I said sure thing. If you don't get it by now, I always say yes to my talents even when I don't deliver. I truly don't know the consequences of it just yet, so that's why I always say yes. I'm sure it's gonna catch up to me later on. So for weeks number 6, I continue to level up my rivalries. The North American Championship, we got it to level 4. I got Chance her opportunity in singles competition. I'm pretty sure she's gonna be happy about it. I was still booking many of the tag teams in singles competition, thinking that it's gonna advance the tag team rivalry. Again, I just didn't learn this into later on, so talk about making the hardest MyGM challenge even harder. Outside of the opening matchup and advancing some of the rivalries a bit, I put on one of the worst show. But that's okay because this is the week that I ended up learning a lot of the things that I just didn't know and I just told you guys about. I actually realized that putting the tag teams in those singles matches were only creating those singles rivalries. I learned more about promos and what it would do to a rivalry, also the runnings, to keep the rivalry going and to ultimately not get stale, because doing those rivalry title matches at the big event is gonna pay off way more. So the next week, it was much easier to book. advancing the women's tag team titles rivalry, also making sure that Carmelo Hayes and Veer gets to level 4 before that next major event. Shanky picked up a victory with Joaquin, making a running. I just wanted to keep them involved so that the rivalry doesn't go stale or drop a level. Shotzi ended up defeating Tamina. In the tag team title rivalry, we started to level it up correctly. WCW had an incredible night, so it was hard to compete with, but as I said, I was happy with the results because I was finally in that Triple H brain, doing my long-term booking to pay off at the major event, and then hopefully take that #1 spot. It is 2 weeks before SummerSlam. Joaquin wants to make sure to be at the event. I got you, bro. And Solo wants me as the GM to interfere in his match and help him out. Listen, Solo, I'm not trying to make my own bloodline here, and I feel like that will be unfair, so I said no. Hopefully I don't get attacked in the backstage. The focus in our next show was the same: build up those rivalries, save a little bit of money because at the big event I am gonna go crazy. We had an okay main event steel cage match of Pete Dunne taking on Akira Tozawa, which led to their rivalry growing from level 3 to level 4. So much like the other world title rivalries, they were ready to go for the big event. I just needed one other big rivalry, the tag team titles, to get out there. This was of course another week where I ended up taking a major loss. This one was a poorly booked show, and WCW was leaving me in the mud right now. I had a good budget, but I needed to get at least a 50K more fans. And then this happened. 1 week away from SummerSlam, Logan Paul hits me up. He says, "Hi, listen, I'm sick of working for Bischoff at WCW." He says, "I'm more than happy to ditch my contract and come work at NXT, and I'll do it at a discount, 95K, and I will sign with NXT starting next week. What do you say?" If you guys remember Logan's Paul price in the draft pool, he was so close to making it to my cost limit. He was literally right there. And even though 95K is cheaper than the 155K limit that we put, I didn't want to cheat. So as I said before, no trades, no negotiations with superstars that are above the limit. So I had to say no to the very popular Logan Paul. The decision hurt because we are very close to week 10, and I am about to fail this challenge if I don't take that #1 position for the first time. Nonetheless, we keep it positive. We continue to build to that next massive event. For this week, we booked the biggest arena. We got some backstage crew, not the craziest budget, but we do have a TLC and a steel cage match to open and close the show. Tamina and Shotzi ends up being a great match. At this point, you guys probably noticed that I don't have the women's champion in a rivalry heading into SummerSlam. I was running out of time to fix that because I was just so focused on 4 other rivalries, like Pete Dunne and Akira Tozawa, the women's tag team title in which Raquel and Jane continue to pick up big victories, Shanky and Joaquin for the North American Championship, Carmelo Hayes and Veer. I had Veer interfere in Carmelo's matchup, so Joaquin walked out with a win. I decided to start a new rivalry between Nikita Lyons and Tamina because yes, I had a plan here, which I'll tell you guys in a bit. Then for the main event, Solo Sikoa and Apollo Crews picked up the victory as they continue to be in a rivalry for those tag team titles. So the booking for this week was decent, with our rating score being a 1 point better than WCW. And when it comes to the fans, we are getting just slightly a little bit closer, not really, but it is then at SummerSlam. This is when we have to take the lead or we fail, because if we don't, I don't think it's gonna get any better. Of course, Triple H is complaining that I haven't booked any title matches, but of course I haven't because I've been waiting for the big event so it could be a bigger payoff. Veer wants to team up with Akira Tozawa right before he gets a major title matchup. Why does everyone want to team up with Akira Tozawa? And of course, the women's champion is not happy because I don't really have her in a rivalry right now. And that is really my fault. And now she wants the main event. There is no way I could book her in the main event of SummerSlam when she's not even in a big storyline. I'm looking like Vince McMahon right now. She's not gonna be happy after I book this show. So like the great general manager that I am, I lied to her.
I lied!
It is now time to book my biggest show, SummerSlam. Week 10 is here. This is the final line. To finally get ahead, to open the show, it is the Tag Team Championships on the line. Jinder Mahal and Chad Gable defending against Solo Sikoa and Apollo Crews in a steel cage match. I got an amazing rating and the rivalry was completed. As the women's champion, I still wanted to book Shotzi, so I decided to turn her heel because Nikita Lyon been waiting for an opportunity, so maybe she's next. I got another level 4 rivalry matchup, and it is a submission match with Pete Dunne defeating Akira Tozawa in a good matchup. Tamina rivalry with Nikita Lyons continues. The women's tag team titles are on the line. Another level 4 rivalry inside a Hell in a Cell, and Raquel Rodriguez and Jane continues to hold those titles. Nikita Lyons continue to impress the crowd. I mean, at this point, I'm just losing money not booking her. So halfway through this season, I know what we need to do. We continue with the level 4 rivalry, and it is an Iron Man match. Shanky defending the North American Championship against Joaquin, and Shanky loses the title in a classic matchup. That's really what we love to see. And then in the main event, it is a backstage brawl because we need to spend some money. Level 4 rivalry for the NXT title, and Veer Mahan is the brand new champion coming in hot, giving us a legendary matchup in our main event. Massive celebration for Veer here. I really felt like this was my WrestleMania and that I was ready to jump to number 1. But first we have to see the WCW show. They had an Iron Man match, a tables match, Extreme Rules, another tables match, and a backstage brawl. I was scared, but none of these were title matches. So I wasn't too sure what Eric Bischoff was doing. Maybe us saving so much money finally paid off, and him spending so much is running him out of business. Checking out the results, we had an amazing show with every single matchup on the card defeating WCW by a lot. It was a rating score of 127 to 102, and we had 62k more fans than WCW. But the question is, was that enough to finally take the lead? And yes, it was. We became number 1. We finally had more fans and we had a bigger budget. Eric Bischoff couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. We were finally on top, and it took us 10 weeks to get there. So we barely completed this 10-week challenge, but a full season is 25 weeks. So if you guys want me to continue this, just drop a like and let me know in the comments. For now, we just get our participation trophy and we stay savage.
Yeah.